bottom line in business. Voice America Business.
Welcome to CIO Talk Radio with your host, Sanjo Gall. All comments, views, and opinions expressed on this show are strictly those of the host, guests, and callers. Here's Sanjo Gall.
Good morning and welcome to CIO Talk Radio. The show is brought to you by Promethean, the global leader in managed EDI services. To learn more about the show, please visit www.ciotalkradio.com. Today's topic is cost of IT quality or lack thereof. Our guests for today's show are John Weinstein, who's the Executive Vice President and CIO of the Options Clearing Corporation. Good morning, John.
Morning.
How is Chicago weather?
Chicago weather is great. It's nice fall weather, and it's just a beautiful blue sky.
Beautiful. Now, we also have Ben Hope, who's the Senior Vice President and CIO with the Fox Networks Group. Good morning, Ben.
Good morning.
So, Los Angeles, ocean
and hot. The Santa Anas are blowing, and it should reach the 90s today.
All right. So we have our own flavors of weather that we are living in, but at the same time we have a common problem, which is IT quality, how to manage it, how to set expectations, and how to keep it going and keeping at sustainable levels. So with the mantra that we always have, and we are under the gun regarding more with less, with terms of resources that are provided or offered to IT, can we say that let's get creative, let's think out of the box, and create IT quality-related measures or techniques which will allow us to do more with less and maybe skip steps if you have to and still deliver the high level of quality that's expected for IT? John?
Yes is the answer, is the short answer. I think that with any high-performing team, whether it's quality assurance or development or anything else, you're going to have a certain amount of flexibility built into the process that you deploy. When it comes to quality assurance, obviously you don't need to test everything for every change that comes down through the pipeline. You know, some changes that are very fundamental to the system, obviously you need to do a complete system regression test, but some of them that are like maybe just the reports or something, you don't need to do whole system regression tests for that. So I think flexibility is part of that triad of people, process, and tools. You just need to be smart about how you deploy your resources.
So, Ben, what do you think?
I agree with John that certainly you can get creative and be far more productive and effective and efficient with how you spend your quality dollars. And again, it's more of understanding the process of quality and making sure that it's part of a process and that it's not an event. I don't necessarily believe that cost and quality are necessarily correlated. Now, cost and speed often are. So if you're looking to expedite things and get them faster, often that means an increase in cost. But if you plan properly, if you understand where quality should fit into the entire value chain, it is not unreasonable to say, how can we become more creative, more effective, and more efficient with our quality dollar and still get the same results?
So when you budget in the beginning of the year, like you budget for development staff and quality tools and infrastructure, you budget for quality-related resources, maybe people, process, technology, etc. Once you have budgeted for that and you know the business is changing and or growing, and next year they say, slash it a little bit. So did you over-budget the first year?
Not necessarily.
How did you manage then to cut costs and not have would you not be kind of forced to cut corners? Or what's that trick up your sleeve that you've used even after your budget, which was so tight in the first place, and then you're further asked to slash it? You still were able to maintain quality.
Well, from my experience, the key is to learn your lessons along the way and to make sure that where you find inefficiencies, you're documenting that and you're understanding how you can do it better the next time around. To believe that in every case you've come across the ideal approach to everything is the first step towards failure in this particular area. So, from that perspective, I think you don't necessarily say that it was a failure the year before. It's just an opportunity going forward.
John, what do you think?
a parity that we keep, or a balance that we keep between all of the disciplines along the project line. For instance, one of the first or the earlier steps of any project is to go through analysis and design, and then it goes through development, and then it goes through testing and deployment and such, user acceptance testing and all that in there too. So to cut any one of those pieces dramatically so it's out of balance with the rest of the pipeline does a disservice to the entire pipeline. So if we need to reduce costs or ask to do less, my first question is, okay, curb your appetite. Don't ask for liposuction. All right, curb your appetite. What projects do we not want to do? What hard decisions do we need to take on the project demand to curb our appetite first? Then we can talk about what resources and where we cut, if any.
So leaders, for them to be able to keep a good balance, essentially one core quality that we're looking for is that they are not yes people. They would not just go ahead and say yes to everything and then challenge their whole crew to have them, go crazy with those ideas and then deliver, right?
Yeah, it's all about demand management. We have put together a team of people. They're not the most senior people in the organization, but they are empowered by the senior people in each of their respective organizations. IT has one seat at that table. There are 6 seats. And they go through a very, very rigorous push and pull and, sometimes tumultuous process to come up with what projects are higher priorities than other ones, and therefore which ones are going to get the first ladleful of resources out of the bucket.
Now, at one end, you have this challenge, and this is a question for both of you. Where you are trying to, push back in a way to say if you have less budget or you want us to work with less, what do we do with the current level of resources? So somebody gets alienated in that whole process, whosoever gets their project at least delayed or postponed for the time being. And the same set of people are also working on, or in some form or fashion, also contributing towards overall IT quality. So how do we prevent them getting their support from going away at the same time when you're able to push back on the projects that which were owned by them?
I think the key to that is to make sure that, as John has said, you do have a seat at the table when it comes to setting the overall strategy, not just IT strategy, but what's the business strategy, and where does technology fit into that? These are normally at that level when you're deciding on major investments and which ones will be pursued and which ones will be deferred and which ones won't ever be pursued. Normally, you have some fairly senior people who are their goal is to create value for a company. And if you are articulate in why one thing should be a priority over another, and you have everybody at the table and you're not having these dialogues in silos, I think overall you can achieve a list of projects or a list of initiatives that are really beneficial overall to the entity. And maybe there is some hand-holding that has to take place to get people along the way who may have to wait until their initiative becomes the priority. But again, I think it comes down to having a seat at that table and making sure that the communication is open and honest.
And that's got really nothing to do specifically with quality assurance. It's got to do with project portfolio demand management, really. Yep. And the quality assurance has an equal seat at the table, if you will, of not being any more or any less important than analysis, design, project management, development, user acceptance testing. Those are just all different links in the chain that make it all work, make it successful.
So how do you see, in terms of the way IT quality is defined, is perceived by different people within an organization? Have you seen discrepancy? And if yes, how? I mean, you'll see new people coming in, old people going out, and or people are changing roles. And based on the role that they're playing, the interpretation of what IT quality should be could possibly change if they are not checked on a regular basis. So how do you keep uniformity or homogeneity in terms of interpretation of IT quality across the organization?
At OCC, we only have one measure of quality, and that's something we call our quality standards. And what that basically is our service level agreement to the industry. I think out of the 45 or so quality standards that we have, there are probably 2 that are really inwardly facing, meaning that they're really truly, the gears that make this wheel turn every day oriented. All the other ones are all externally facing, means that they're all visible services to our customers, either to our exchanges or to our clearing members or regulators or all of the above. So, and that's how we measure our quality. We measure how many non-conformances to those. We have a very rigorous, what we call a production accountability process that we go through that's been practiced here and optimized for years at OCC. And we go through every single non-conformance in our production environment, regardless of the origin. Sometimes it's a change that has come into the environment. Sometimes it's a data condition that we didn't expect and our systems couldn't handle it. Sometimes it's a new product launch that, we weren't expecting that. Let's go figure out how to make that work in our new systems and have to deploy new applications as a result of that. So, a lot of reasons why things go bump in the night, but at the end of the day, it all comes down to the quality standards, and that's how we measure ourselves as an organization overall, and that's very much reflected in our approach to quality assurance.
I think the way I've seen it evolve over time is, quality was a step in the process as opposed to being the process or being integral to every step in the process. And so, having a quality assurance event where you run through your code, you do your QA testing, you user acceptance testing, and away you go. It's the equivalent for sports fans of playing a prevent defense. And so I think where people have really evolved over time is to understand that you got to design quality in. You have to develop quality in. You can't wait until it's ready for deployment to think about quality. And so I think that's where I've seen it change most significantly, because it's too late. If you get to change control and that's when you're starting to look at quality, it's too late.
When we are looking at the different aspects which basically bring about desired level of IT quality, in short, they are like process improvement, people development, and communication levels within the organization. And all of them are equally important. I think I'm talking to 2 individuals who have successfully implemented IT quality in their respective organizations, and that is because they have a good alignment among the 3, you can say the pillars to that palace that they have built. For organizations who are having tough time in building that alignment, what is causing them to not be able to align? Let's talk more. Please stay tuned. We'll be right back after these messages.
All we talk about is money. Call us toll-free, 866-472-5790, and talk to the experts. We talk money all the time. Voice America Business.
Looking for flexible ways to scale your IT efforts? Then visit www.avol.com today. Avol helps companies find the global IT talent they need to align their IT and business objectives. Whether it's hiring top IT leadership talent or building a reliable technology team, Avol delivers. To find out how Avol can help your company, visit www.avol.com or call 1-800-947-2832. Avol, delivering global IT talent. That's www.avol, A-V-V-A-L, avol.com. Visit today.
Good morning, Mr. Phelps. The company I'm going to tell you about is the global leader in managed EDI services. Your mission, should you decide to accept it, is to find out all you can about Promethean software services. The word within the intelligence community is that many of our competitors have chosen Promethean's managed EDI services. I would suggest you start your investigation by clicking on the Promethean link within the CIO Talk Radio website. This tape, Mr. Phelps, will self-destruct in 5 seconds, along with your job, if you don't provide a compelling reason as to why we haven't implemented Promethean's managed EDI solution.
Please sign on to www.prometheanssi.com or call us directly at 866-311-0580.
The Internet's only all-business and financial radio network, Voice America Business.
You are listening to CIO Talk Radio. To learn more about the show, please visit www.ciotalkradio.com. If you have a question or comment, call toll-free 1-866-472-5790. Now back to the show. Here's Sanjo Gall.
Welcome back. So for successful IT quality management, we see that while we should have a good strategy and an execution plan, it primarily depends on process improvement, people development, and improved level of communication and a continuous improvement around that area. Now, all these factors are very important, and it seems that John and Ben both have in their respective organizations have a good alignment of these three areas for them to be able to keep things under control. However, there are a lot of companies where if you take the IT leader on the side and say what area is suffering the most, IT quality would be at least the top contender in that list. If that is the case, that means there's a problem with that alignment. What is that big of a deal in being able to create that alignment because of which most people are facing these challenges? John.
Well, I think that you really need to go back to the overall vision and strategy of the business and say, okay, what are we really trying to accomplish here? And if having better quality assurance helps accomplish that overall business strategy, then by all means you need to strengthen that quality assurance function within the IT organization. That may not be the solution. That may not be the problem, and you want to make that perfectly clear that quality assurance, even if it was absolutely perfect, is that going to really change anything? Is it really going to matter? And that's also a good litmus test on how much time and attention and money you spend on quality assurance. Some organizations that are heavily dependent on IT systems, such as the Options Clearing Corp, we obviously have a very, very rigorous quality assurance process because this is our business. We're basically a big IT service with a whole bunch of regulators looking over our shoulder. That's a gross exaggeration, but you kind of get the gist of it. Other organizations, IT may be more of a support function, and if they get hiccups or bumps in the night every now and then, it's a nuisance, but it doesn't bring the business to its knees. So I think you really need to go back to the original business strategy and say, what's the most appropriate thing, and make sure you get alignment with that, regardless if it's quality assurance or development or any other aspect of IT.
So you're saying, in a way, that IT quality overall is not a showstopper in some cases.
That's right. That's right. I would say that it's obviously important, but there's degrees of importance depending on what you're trying to accomplish with your business.
Ben?
I think I agree with John that the quality is baked into the process is critical. But as you look at the three factors you listed, I think where we really shortchange ourselves in that alignment, especially when there are financial challenges, is in the areas of training and development and communication. And often what will happen is when we're challenged with financial budget challenges or how do we do more for less, training budgets are easy targets and often are cut too far. And I think we all end up in a position where we're doing far too much multitasking, and we rely on technological tools like the BlackBerries and email to try to solve problems, which, by the way, are god-awful tools to solve problems. And so what ends up happening is you can breed miscommunication and distrust, and ultimately, while your quality may be aligned with the strategy, if there's not that that trust in the IT group to actually execute, the entire process breaks down. And so if you look, to your question of where you state that all three of these factors are equally important, I agree. I'm not necessarily convinced we shortchange ourselves in terms of having enough resources to do quality work and or to perform quality testing. But we often shortchange ourselves in the other areas, and with that comes a loss of communication with our business partners.
Talking about innovation, while we are handling anyways lots of fires that we keep having just because we are in this beautiful world of IT, we also have to innovate in business as well as a result of it in IT. Or sometimes IT innovation is the one which brings innovation in business, the other way around. While we are doing this, that causes disruption. And if you have to implement, we also are getting away from status quo. And that is what is one of the measure of quality, of IT quality, that you are never going down below a certain threshold, even though if you were making changes. So how do you eat the cake and have it too, Ben?
Well, I think, one of the things you got to be careful about, and, the IT innovation bandwagon, is you don't want to get run over by that bandwagon. And I think sometimes we're too clever for our own good. Sometimes the greatest innovation is simplicity, and not reinventing the wheel or making the decision that you don't need the latest and greatest bleeding-edge technology to actually help create value for your business. So one of the things that, when I look at where we should be innovative and where we should be implementing cutting-edge technologies, I'm always going to look at the simpler solution versus the bleeding-edge solution and make a decision, should I be going down that path and being innovative for innovation's sake and not for value creation?
John?
Yeah, I think innovation is a big deal for OCC too. We have many people understanding and going through a lot of innovation training and such, just kind of get acclimated to it. But at the end of the day, the innovation that we do, we get the vast majority of the value out of the small incremental improvements that we make to an ongoing process or an ongoing system or something, rather than the breakthrough. And that's something we continuously emphasize, is that we're not here to find the cure for the common cold. That's not our business. We're not a pharmaceutical company or anything. But we are here to process securities transactions and to do that better, cheaper, and faster than anybody else in the world. And that's our goal. And what we need to do is to continuously improve the process and all the sub-processes that go into that, quality assurance being one. So we actually made one of the earlier breakthroughs that we had in our innovation implementation throughout the organization is actually in quality assurance. And that's one of the reasons why I think that we have a world-class quality assurance team today, and it's done very well. But none of that was earth-shaking. It was a couple of organizational changes. It was a couple of responsibility changes. It was some additional training. It was, blocking and tackling kind of stuff that, oh, wow, hey, this is a better way to do this, and we can be much more flexible about how we do things. And I think we've made great strides as a result of that.
But during that disruption, do you not lose the levels of quality that you're also supposed to maintain?
We don't experiment in production environments, meaning that in order to innovate, you have to have a safe sandbox to make sure to prove out the concept and make sure that you're not doing something that's going to hurt the overall goal of being the best clearinghouse in the world for derivatives. So at the end of the day, we do digestible bites, so we do experiments in safe areas, and when we are convinced that things are working as expected, we then deploy them into the production process.
So with respect to what you have to demonstrate to the outside world for you to gain support, while you mentioned that there are certain standards that you follow as an organization, which is the ultimate measure whether IT quality is there or not, Is that what is the only thing that you would ever use to show to the rest of the world to gain support that this is what the measure is, this is what we are achieving, so come embrace us, and anything new that we do, support us? Ben?
To demonstrate your value to an organization and to the outside world, I don't think that IT should be held to any other measuring stick that the business is going to be held to. So for me, it's always been, what value are you creating and what's your return on investment? And I think it's fairly easy to prove what the value is in creating a quality organization and a process to develop quality technology. And sometimes you have to change the dialogue to say not what is the cost of quality, but what is the cost of a lack of quality. So I always compare information technology to air and water, right? You only notice when it's not there. And so from a quality perspective, you have to be looking at what is the business implications of a lack of quality. For Fox Networks Group, you turn on the television and you go black. There's real implications there. You don't get your advertising dollars on the air. There's real implications there. And the systems that are behind all of that get the signal on the air, that get the advertising in place, that get them on the commercial logs, all of that to understand what music has been cleared so that we don't end up violating some music rights agreement. All of that has technology behind it. Now, there's an assumed standard that it's all going to be 100% accurate. Well, you can't get there without spending some money on quality. So from my perspective, what you do is you align IT quality with the business strategy that says we're in the business of creating value and getting a return on our investment. And the only way to do that, to ensure that we can stay on the air with quality product, is to make these investments in high-quality transactional systems that will help run your business.
So what you just mentioned, Ben, basically you communicate that to a set of, say, stakeholders or your peers or counterparts in the business side, and then they are supposed to take that communication down the chain of command for them to make sure that they are doing things right. At the same time, you tell your IT crew along the chain of command that they do things right. Do you think anything ever gets lost in translation? And if at all that could be a possibility, how do you prevent it?
I think, how you prevent it is you don't do it necessarily down siloed chains of command. It has to be, IT can't be a separate entity unto itself. And I've been in organizations where it was a throw over the fence, hey, IT, come back with a solution. And for me, that's a recipe for disaster. It has to be far more collaborative. I use the mantra with my organization that there are no IT projects. There are business projects that the IT organization facilitates. And if you look at it from that paradigm, you're never going to have that misalignment, because we won't do anything unless there's a business sponsor who is saying, this is valuable to the business. I understand the need for quality. I understand the need to not only invest in the technology, but in a quality implementation of that technology. And if they're not willing to step up, there is no IT project.
John?
Yeah, I think we're going to go to a commercial.
Let's take a quick break, listeners. We'll be right back after these messages, and then listen to John about how is his organization streamlining the communication across business and IT to make sure there is nothing lost in translation and quality is preserved. Please stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Money. Up-to-date business and financial news. Money. Call now and get the financial information you need. 866-472-5790. 866-472-5790. Voice America Business.
Looking for flexible ways to scale your IT efforts? Then visit www.avol.com today. Avol helps companies find the global IT talent they need to align their IT and business objectives. Whether it's hiring top IT leadership talent or building a reliable technology team, Avol delivers. To find out how Avol can help your company, visit www.avol.com or call 1-800-947-2832. Avol, delivering global IT talent. That's www.avol, A-V-V-A-L, avol.com. Visit today.
Good morning, Mr. Phelps. The company I'm going to tell you about is the global leader in managed EDI services. Your mission, should you decide to accept it, is to find out all you can about Promethean software services. The word within the intelligence community is that many of our competitors have chosen Promethean's managed EDI services. I would suggest you start your investigation by clicking on the Promethean link within the CIO Talk Radio website. This tape, Mr. Phelps, will self-destruct in 5 seconds, along with your job, if you don't provide a compelling reason as to why we haven't implemented Promethean's managed EDI solution.
Please sign on to www.prometheanssi.com or call us directly at 866-311-0580.
The bottom line in business. Voice America Business.
You are listening to CIO Talk Radio. To learn more about the show, please visit www.ciotalkradio.com. If you have a question or comment, call toll-free 1-866-472-5790. Now back to the show. Here's Sanjog Gall.
Welcome back. So, John, what is lost in translation?
I think that the first thing that we have is that everybody's really focused in on the same strategy and the same set of objectives. So that's helpful to make sure that nobody gets off on a tangent someplace. But I think also going back to the quality assurance, how do we know when it's working well and when it's not working well? And our organization, at least, I think it has a lot to do with the quality of life of the staff. If people are getting woken up at night for production problems or having to work nights and weekends or it's a real struggle, then that's an indication that things are not quite as what they should be. And it's not just quality assurance being the last step in the process before deployment, but it's also the quality of the work process. So there's really quality assurance in the process itself, in addition to the application or whatever is being deployed. Overall, though, I think the real litmus test of quality is what's the reputation of the organization in the marketplace. How are you perceived by your customers, by your competitors, by your regulators in our case? How are you perceived by the people that you're trying to hire? Is this an attractive place to come to work for? And are people excited about coming to work? And do you have long longevity, or do you have high turnover and the reputation in the marketplace of being a sweatshop? These are all things. These are intangibles, but all these things really play into the overall quality awareness rather than just quality assurance of an application.
Now, when you mentioned about this, the impression that you have, the reputation that you have in an organization. Now, that also kind of ties into the next question, where we are trying to have these individuals who feel good about being in an organization and also understanding very well that if they're laying a brick on the wall, then this is going to result in that big palace that they're building or castle that they're building. And then also they should be owning. They should have some sort of ownership and accountability at the same time for their own actions and the deliverables they have. Then only there will be a rolled up effect of the level of quality that you're anticipating. Many companies say that while we have these great standards and policies and procedures, but something is missing because of which we are not getting the desired results. So is there a problem in the motivation, the way you're motivating, or you're assessing accountability? What's happening there, Ben?
The best quality starts with the business partnership and a constructive working relationship. So, yeah, if your team's metrics and the way you're measuring your team is based on the delivery of the project, you're going to lose that alignment, and they're not going to feel part of the business. If you set it up so that they are the vendor and the business is the customer, you're going to lose that relationship. But if they can walk in the shoes of their business partners, if they truly understand, if I do this, this is what happens to the on-air product. This is what happens to how we schedule television and how it impacts what the American audience is going to see on the Fox networks. There's a far greater opportunity there for them to feel aligned with the business, to feel empowered, to really put forth even a greater effort, because they feel part of a business and not just part of a project. Because ultimately the project will be done, and it'll be you really won't get a true sense of accomplishment. But when you can understand how that's impacting the overall business, and the business understands that you understand that, they're going to be looking to you not only for solving this problems, but solving other problems. So for me, it's really getting that alignment to the business itself, and forget about the technology. Do you understand what these people do when they show up to their desk?
Yeah, I think that having that context or understanding the big picture, absolutely, Ben. I think that's spot on. If people understand and realize that they're not just spending all day lifting this rectangular reddish thing, that in fact what they're doing is contributing to building the wall for the palace or whatever it is that whatever your metaphor was there, Sanjo. But so that context is a big part of that, and that context really is the overall business strategy and vision, and then also making sure that you tie that line of sight for that individual and what he or she is doing all day long to that strategy overall. And we go to great lengths to make sure in our organization here that's done, that everybody, not only their job in general, but specifically, I've said it several times in town hall meetings and my blog and all that kind of thing, that at the end of the day, if every hour of every day that you're doing work, you should be able to tie directly to our overall IT strategy, which is tied directly to the overall company strategy. And if you're not, that means you're off task and you're not helping. So get yourself back on task, and if you don't understand it, be happy to sit down and talk about it with you and figure out how to get you back on task.
And I think that, one of the mistakes that leaders make is they're so caught up in the accountability factor that they put in place performance metrics that actually drive bad behavior, because the metrics themselves aren't necessarily tied to what the overall goal of the business is. They may be tied to tactical execution, but they're not tied to strategy. And so you end up putting in these performance metrics that ultimately are going to be lead to bad results and or dissatisfaction by your employees.
Now, sometime back, an individual who is a senior business executive said that people don't do what you expect out of them. People do what you inspect. And that is a standard thing with his X number of years of experience in business. How much of that is strictly the case when we are at one time we are saying let's appeal to their emotions, let them see the big picture, and if you don't have enough inspection going on, would they really deliver what they're expected to?
Well, yeah. I think it's so. People will do what you encourage them to do or discourage them from doing. By your incentive systems, by your recognition, by off-the-cuff comments that you make, by body language, by a lot of things. People are smart. They know what gets enforced. If there are rules and policies out there, but they're not enforced, then people aren't going to pay a whole lot of time on that. But if there's a big deal that's out there that is or a cultural behavior or that's being rewarded, people will gravitate towards that. If there's some other behavior that is absolutely held up as a cardinal sin, then people will avoid that too. So there are the official policies and rules and all that, and then there are the ones that are the daily operational ones, and you have to make sure that, as Ben said, that you don't in the attempt to gain a greater good, that you actually don't put the incentives or the encouragements or the discouragements in place that create the wrong behaviors.
Now, Ben, you did mention about the culture that you've developed in your organization where you tie the overall end benefit that we get of an IT project through from a business standpoint. Now, we also should look at an existing gap with respect to, say, a piece of code is written, and if that piece is not working well, then we are losing, say, 2 minutes in the customer service time. And then technologically, it seems that there is nothing out there which allows you to link the quality of a piece of code to the end business benefit. It is still stuck with the technical specification, and whosoever is writing that technical specification, we are limited to that individual's ability to tie it back to the business. So how do we handle this gap?
I think the first case, the first thing is to understand what the root cause of the gap is. And why is it that in our first attempt we miss so badly? And often we don't go through that. We are so fixated on resolving the gap and closing the gap that we then move on to the next project or initiative without taking the time to understand what was the root cause. Was it a communication failure? And why was there a communication failure? Do we have a weak resource? Do we have a training issue? Do we have something else that's going on in the business? Or is it a matter of, did we start the project too early because our business partners really couldn't articulate what their business requirements are? And so I think that you can't close the gap effectively going forward unless you understand what caused the gap. You can close the gap in the near term by just fixing things, but you'll be constantly in this loop of fixing things if you don't take the time out to understand how did we get there in the first place. And I think that's one of the things that is something that we all need to do a better job, is taking that time out to do the post-mortem to understand why did we end up in a position where the first go-around was so off.
John, do you see any gaps there?
Yeah, I completely agree with Ben that we often want to just fix the problem and go forward, and we call that fixing the symptoms, but not necessarily the underlying problem. And that's that root cause analysis that Ben was referring to, and I agree, you absolutely have to do that. But doing that root cause analysis is a area that is very ripe for the law of unintentional consequences that we were talking about before. If you turn it into a witch hunt, people will never come clean about what the root cause was. You have to make sure that people understand and agree that this is just for the betterment of the process overall, so that we don't incur the same symptom again, rather than holding somebody up and shooting them for it.
Let's take a quick break, listeners. We'll be right back after these messages and talk about the best practices that an organization tries to adopt within the, to make sure that the IT quality really reaches the desired level, or they even try to make it like a homegrown best practice that they want to follow, which actually works for them. How does one select and how does one identify that this is not the time when they should try to look for something is available? They should build something on their own, and what are the challenges in terms of identifying the one which actually fits your needs? Please stay tuned. We'll be right back and discuss.
Stocks, bonds, 401ks, investments, refinancing. We can help you. Call now toll-free, 866-472-5790, 866-472-5790. Voice America Business.
Looking for flexible ways to scale your IT efforts? Then visit www.avol.com today. Avol helps companies find the global IT talent they need to align their IT and business objectives. Whether it's hiring top IT leadership talent or building a reliable technology team, Avol delivers. To find out how Avol can help your company, visit www.avol.com or call 1-800-947-2832. Avol, delivering global IT talent. That's www.avol.com. Visit today.
Are you still doing EDI in-house? Then put your effort into your business and contact Promethean, the industry's most trusted provider of managed EDI services. Promethean has been providing cost savings and reliable service to Fortune 1000 clients for over 15 years. Our solution is platform independent and enables our clients to reach higher levels of performance. Join Promethean and say goodbye to old technology. For more information, please sign on to www.prometheanssi.com or call us directly at 866-311-0580.
The Internet's only all-business and financial radio network, Voice America Business.
You are listening to CIO Talk Radio. To learn more about the show, please visit www.ciotalkradio.com. If you have a question or comment, call toll-free 1-866-472-5790. Now back to the show. Here's Sanjo Gall.
Welcome back. Before the break, we were to discuss about best practices, whether we should build one or create something homegrown, and how do you identify one, and what becomes the final best thing that you could adopt for better IT quality. But before we get into it, we have a caller. Good morning.
Yes, this is Yingling. Good morning.
Good morning. So, yes, you have a question, sir?
Yes, I do have a question, and thank you all very much. This is a very interesting topic. My question is, how do you measure quality? I mean, what's your benchmark? I understand that IT services, one, is very hard to measure, and secondly, there isn't a lot of federal or state regulations to enforce this kind of transparency about how your IT system operates. For example, we do not know what's the total severity of one outage of any of the network in the past month. So the question is, how do you decide? How do you measure? You have high quality, low quality, average quality between teams and between companies. So it's not a situation we just all live in this very fuzzy, comfortable area where we say we're world class and we automatically become one. Thank you.
So, John, you want to take this?
Yeah. We have a business metric by which we live and die. We have that metric built into our bonus pools, so it's meaningful to everybody in the organization, from the chairman to the mailroom staff. So we all live and die by that quality standard, and we have a very rigorous production accountability process around that to make sure that every non-conformance of every production system is tracked, and we do a root cause analysis on everything. Is it good or bad? And there's no regulatory standard by which we're trying to meet. What we're trying to do is beat ourselves, is what we're doing. So we have a long history of experience. I wouldn't call it good or bad, just of experience with these quality standards that are meaningful to our industry. And every year we try to at least do as good as, if not improve upon, each one of those. And the perception and the reputation in the industry is that we do a pretty darn good job.
So it is a subjective measure, would you say, John?
No, it's absolutely a qualitative metric, not a subjective metric. We don't have any subjectivity in all in this. We either hit the target or we didn't, and we track those any nonconformances and with the root cause behind them, and we report those things to our board every year. So It's a very, very visible process, and it's tied into our bonus pool. How well we do that is tied directly to our pocketbook.
Ben, what do you do in terms of the measure that Ning had a question about?
From our perspective, we have a combination of both subjective and objective measures. I mean, we have the standard measurement on our infrastructure environments, mean time between failures, mean time to repair. We look at, our help desk ticketing and how quickly we can resolve issues. I personally measure quality based on how many emails and phone calls I get. And again, I go back to often information technology in a business environment where technology is really not the product but a support for the product, which it is in the entertainment industry to a great extent. That like air and water, you don't appreciate it until you're missing it. And so I have a kind of an objective measure, which is how often am I getting phone calls from senior executives. And the good news is my phone does not ring overly abundantly, and I'm not getting the calls in the middle of the night. So from that perspective, I think that we do run a quality program. So we do a combination of objective and subjective measures. I think more importantly for us, because we have those objective metrics is to again look at where are we creating value for our business. That's as important to us as how often is the network available.
Ying, does that answer your question?
Yes, absolutely. That's very good. Thank you all very much.
Thank you so much. This was Ying from Charlotte, North Carolina. So let's come back to our question, which is with respect to whether it should be a best practice that is homegrown that would work well for you, or something that is an established best practice in the industry which is pitched by, say, a standards body. Ben, what do you think what works?
What works and what makes for a successful IT leader and executive is to understand that there is no such thing as a best practice. There is a best practice for every situation. And the key is to understand what your environment is and which practice would be best for you. So I've seen other technology leaders and business leaders who are caught up in the best practice du jour and will implement it very aggressively, inappropriately in the wrong environment. And I think that to really be successful and to understand what's going to drive quality throughout your entire organization is the acceptance that there is no such thing as a best practice. There is a best practice for every environment.
Now, with respect to outsourcing, we always see that we are trying to even outsource IT quality. At least software quality to some extent is being done, and in case if we are outsourcing our IT infrastructure, we are outsourcing that as well. So with all that happening and things are going out of your control in a way, how do you think you can have a homogeneity in the quality that you keep in-house? John?
Well, I think that outsourcing, whether it's onshore or offshore, the success or the value of doing that really depends on if you're supplementing a capability that you already have organizationally already, which I think is fine if that's the best model for you to build is an outsourced type of model, and that's best for your organization. It helps you best meet your overall organization's strategy and vision, then that's fine. But if you're just trying to throw the problem over the transom and substitute it for or abdicate responsibility for it, whether that's quality assurance or any other function for that matter, you're in trouble. And the control issue that you mentioned, I'm not so sure I agree with the control issue. Whether you have in-house resources, you have contractors on site, or if you've outsourced something either just outsourced or offshored, you still have to have the same management controls in place. You still have to have the same vision that you're trying to achieve with the organization overall. The supply model is different, but not the overall objective that you're trying to accomplish.
So Ben, have you come across this outsourcing, and if there's any problem with it?
Of course. As a former GE employee,
yeah.
I'm very familiar with outsourcing.
Right.
I'm going to go back to something John said earlier in the dialogue about, demand management and the need really to have balance in your process, to understand that you need to have balance between quality and, development, etc. And I'm going to say that the key to outsourcing is also balance. And I'm also going to reference, my comments about having metrics that drive the wrong behavior. I agree wholeheartedly with John that, outsourcing is absolutely beneficial in certain circumstances, but to have a generic metric that says you must outsource a fixed percentage of a particular process, irrespective of whether or not you're implementing new technology or supplementing existing technology, from my perspective, becomes counterproductive, and it does drive the wrong behavior. I also don't believe in that outsourcing is bad by its very nature. Again, it goes to balance. Either opinion or either approach on either end of the extreme is going to absolutely succumb to the law of diminishing returns. You either lose the opportunity, economic opportunity of taking, benefit of outsourcing, or you end up in a position where you do lose control of some very vital technological decisions and vital steps in the process, and you end up, ultimately it ends up costing you more in the long run.
On behalf of the show and our listeners, I'd really like to thank you, John and Ben, for sharing your thoughts about what could be the cost that you could pay for not having the right level of IT quality.
Our pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you again. Now, most of us would agree that building and sustaining high level of IT quality is essentially a change management issue. And we need to have one definition of IT quality across the board, which is completely understood by all constituents, which is IT crew, business users, business unit leaders, and executive management, and also the speed of change at which we see the business and IT are moving. There is no time to relax. If you can build a core foundation supported with appropriate mindsets of all constituents, you may be able to fine-tune IT quality-related processes, people, and the communication, which are the three pillars, to achieve the desired goals. Thank you again for listening to CIO Talk Radio, brought to you by Promethean, the global leader in managed EDI services. This is Sanjog Aul, your talk show host. Till next week, take care, and God bless.
Thank you for tuning in to CIO Talk Radio. To learn more about the show, please visit www.ciotalkradio.com. Join Sanjog Aul next Wednesday at 9 a.m. Central, 7 a.m. Pacific for another hour of CIO Talk Radio.